All right, so I'm Tony Abfalter, Director of Engineering and IT for Leighton Enterprises, headquartered up in St. Cloud. And currently, right now, I am working down at McMurdo Base as their senior communications technician and stuff like that. So, kind of a cool job. I'm assuming we got the first slide up.
Yep, I'm just about to go
So
screen here.
Okay. So kind of a little bit of overview of our tower site. It's actually one direction of our tower site, but it's at the top of the hill, right behind McMurdo and stuff, and that's where we keep a lot of our transmitters. We do some receiving for the field communications there, and then our larger receive antennas for the aircraft and stuff like that for HF communications is actually held out at our Black Island site. Okay, next slide. So some of the systems that are kind of under our oversight and stuff from the communications side, we deal with the VHF two-way communications, the repeaters, field comms, and stuff like that. The HF field systems for all the field bases during the summer, field camps and whatnot, they communicate back to us HF as kind of like the primary means. They have backup for Iridium and stuff like that, but their daily check-ins are usually done on HF with field radios and stuff like that. We also take care of the HF flight following communications and stuff like that for the aircraft landing and items like that, along with the point-to-point wireless link. So anything that is done like external of buildings and stuff for point-to-point to the various field camps and just buildings around town, we address those. Another part of the communications thing is our satellite communications, our SATCOM. They deal with the internet voice satellite communications for our link. We also have some FM radio stations here, which is something most people don't know about. But we have 4 FMs, and then we have a closed circuit cable TV system. And then, of course, the fun part of being down here, we have our ham radio station that communications helps keep working for everybody, and things like that. So the next slide, that is a overlook of our one of our antenna fields, one of the side views of it. The bubble in the background is our new satellite terminal that we put online, Rise, that just went online this year. And then there's various towers that host our VHF, UHF paging repeaters and stuff like that. And then also out in the field, we have multiple conical monopole antennas out there, along with inverted cone antennas, which are primarily used for field communications and things like that. Next slide. That's kind of a larger overview of our tower site there. Like I said, there's a lot of HF going on, especially during the summer. HF is kind of our go-to for long-range communications and things like that. Next slide. So that's another view of kind of our antenna systems we have in place. Right in the front is obviously just one of our towers that's used for putting on VHF, UHF antennas, and things like that. Next slide. So this is a look inside our radome for our Rise terminal. It's a 13-meter antenna, so it's pretty cool. And then next slide is the ham radio shack that we have on site. It's pretty cool. And then next would be a look at one of our HF antennas that we use for field communications. And then the next slide is basically our link out to Black Island, which used to be our primary terminal for satellite communications, and now it's kind of our backup, along with the HF receive antennas for our flight following and stuff like that are out at Black Island. And then the last picture is our ham radio Yagi antenna that I took. So that's kind of a little bit of an overview. It's pretty cool. There are definitely some unique challenges to the environment. One of the cool things, though, is living in Minnesota kind of prepares you for a lot of the events that you go up against here with the cold weather and items like that. So it's actually kind of a unique environment in the sense of it being cooler all the time, but it's actually neat that Minnesota kind of prepares you for that area around here. So it's actually pretty interesting. So that's basically it. I mean, I'm open for questions because I know that's what everybody wants.
Okay, I'll jump. So what is the daytime high this time of year?
Yep. So right now we're running right around -4 to 4 above. It's been a little bit warmer this year. The weather's been a little bit more gracious this year, but we're starting to kind of sink into reality now. Like this morning, I think the wind chill was -44.
Oof.
So we just got done with a storm 2 days ago where we were gusting around 55 knot winds. So really right now the biggest unique impact has been the winds. Obviously temperature is an issue, but the winds, when they go, they're pretty incredible here. So it is kind of interesting as far as for antennas and equipment around here, how robust we have to have stuff. It's not, where you can just like simply throw something up. Wind has to be a consideration in a lot of our deployment. So it's pretty unique in that sense.
So,
Taylor, I missed that, or you only got a glance at that slide of kind of under some dish antennas, almost like an inside view. Could you run that by again, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm assuming you're talking about our satellite terminal.
Yeah, that looks like
Yep.
the
So
one.
that's
Can you do that
so
full
that's
screen?
inside the.
Yep. Can you do it full screen?
Yep.
Okay.
It's processing,
wait for it.
maybe. There it is.
So yeah, so that's a look inside our RISE terminal. We just put that online this year. Basically, it handles all of our voice. So what I'm talking to you on right now is going through the RISE terminal and our internet. It's 13-meter dish and stuff. I don't know. It's big. It's pretty cool. But yeah, so primarily it handles that kind of communication. Our main focus of using that is for NASA and other various downlinks that they feed live data to on like satellite overpasses and things like that. And then we also use it for our own internet on station.
It looks like it's okay. It looks like it's almost pointing at the horizon from your location, of course.
Yep. It's about 3 degrees.
So do you have any downtime on the satellite? Or are you guys up all 24 hours a day or?
Nope, we're locked in 24 hours a day. So we don't have like South Pole station has to track the satellite passes. We're locked on a stationary satellite. So we're kind of fortunate. I mean, it'd be nice to have more internet, but you know, we're fortunate with what we got. So it's pretty cool.
So how close are you to the actual South Pole?
About 800, I think it's 850 miles.
Still quite a ways. So for
Yeah,
for
go ahead.
tower work, is there? Do you help with things that change or get broken or whatever on the towers down there, or is there a dedicated crew for that?
Yeah, so good question. So typically during the winter, just because of the conditions outside, I mean, it's not a reality to have our riggers down here doing climbing and things during the winter. Just, I mean, for obvious reasons, safety, and you know, most things are iced up and stuff. But during the summer, yeah, our communications department will take care of kind of the coordination. So essentially, what a broadcast engineer would do. In the fact of laying out kind of what needs to be done and stuff like that, what the plan of attack is, what, you know, what items are needed for either repair or install and stuff like that. And then during the summer, we do have a team of, they're called riggers down here, but I mean, they're tower climbers. I mean, they're very skilled at what they do. So those are the gentlemen, and I think there's usually 3 of them that go around and do the tower work. I mean, there's various work in town, but also on our remote repeater sites and stuff like that. And they're what you would expect of a tower crew. They're experts at dealing with the towers, the structures, things like that. So, you know, some years it's about climbing, other years it's about, you know, the maintenance on the actual structures and stuff like that, which, I mean, of course, they're very good at what they do. But yeah, what we call riggers down here are exactly equivalent to a tower climber. I mean, they're the same thing. So it's pretty cool. We got a cool team of guys that do that.
Did I miss this, or did you say latency on the internet? What's it like?
Latency runs about 700 and some milliseconds.
Now, wait a minute. Is
So-
that in one direction or 2?
That is overall directions. So if I was to do a ping, it takes about 750 milliseconds, give or take, depending upon the decoding. So it's akin to Iridium as far as for latency and delay or HughesNet or anything like that, because we're shooting from a geosync.
So run down for me again, please, the purpose of this particular facility, or are there multiple purposes?
Of the actual satellite terminal?
No. Your facility, the base you're at.
Okay, so yeah, so McMurdo is obviously we're kind of the main base as far as for U.S. Arctic exploration and stuff like that. So basically, our primary services here are really to be the kind of workshop in Antarctica, the deployment point for our other bases and stuff like that in Antarctica, and support the field camps that come out here during the summer. So a lot of McMurdo's purpose is logistical support and then grantee support. So we support a lot of the science field camps and stuff like that. So, we're kind of like the mothership, if you will. We make sure that as much of the science and logistics are supported and stuff like that. So
if you have Armed Forces Network there, that means you have military there as well.
nope. So So the Armed Forces Network is there to provide us with access to the TV service and stuff like that. And then obviously they are kind of heading up the radio TV side of things. But yeah, there's no active military here because that's prohibited by the Antarctic Treaty.
So how many guys
So
are
they,
there at any given time?
right now on station there is 126, which is kind of a light winter crew. Normally I think it runs about 200 for winter, and then during the summer I think it's about 1,800 people. So during the winter, our primary focus here during the winter is going through, like, so in my department, my primary focus during the winter months is it's kind of our maintenance window. We do have some light science going on during the winter, but most of the scientists have left, obviously. So basically our primary goals during the winter are to go through equipment, make any repairs, take advantage of the lighter station population, do maintenance and items like that, prep equipment for summer and things like that. So during the winter, you get to do a lot of the cool things that during the summer, I mean, you're running around and trying to support teams and stuff like that, and put out fires, if you will. During the winter, you actually get to kind of do a lot of the cool stuff. If there's any projects of like actually rebuilding components, like a lot of our repeaters are battery powered, charged through solar and stuff like that. So you get to rebuild a lot of those systems and things like that that you would typically not during the summer get a chance to do because they'd be in active use. So that's basically what we do during the winter months.
Okay, you're headed into winter now, is that right? Just as we're headed into summer in Minnesota?
Yep.
Okay. How
So
about
right now we're in darkness. So, yep.
now you mentioned power. Solar can't be all of it. What else do you have?
For primary or like our repeater systems out in the field?
Power to run the facility.
Sure. So we have our own power plant that's diesel powered, and they're running like 5 big generators and stuff like that. So that's what provides power. Back in the day, they did try nuclear, but it just wasn't making any sense in this environment.
Now, is McMurdo on actual soil or is it on ice?
Yeah, so good question. We're actually on soil. It's volcanic soil. So Ross Island is just a lot of volcanic material and stuff like that, which is a lot of fun for our equipment around here, getting the fine volcanic dust and stuff into it. So that presents a cool challenge. But yeah, no, we're actually sitting on Ross Island itself. We're right on the edge of it. So where McMurdo is literally right on the shoreline to the Ross Sea.
Yeah, I saw a report about the military in the 1950s and 60s building a base up near the North Pole and for nuclear, that kind of thing, protection. And they had to give up on it because the ice kept moving, flowing anyway, the point is that it couldn't keep the base going because it was high maintenance.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, logistically here, we don't really have any like ice movement at McMurdo directly. There's obviously glaciers around here that move, but for us, it's really just, I mean, it's snow. I mean, that's about it. So we just have to deal with drifts. But yeah, as far as for ice movement and stuff, that's not an issue. I know South Pole, the way it's designed is to let snow flow underneath it and stuff like that. But really, we don't have any ice movement. I'm sure there are other bases around here that are non-U.S. that are situated in spots like that. But yeah, no, for McMurdo, we don't have any of those issues.
Do they keep the temperature in the buildings at 70 degrees, or is it something cooler than that?
No, actually, our buildings are quite comfy. When I first got here, I just about had to move outside because I'm used to cooler temperatures, not to these warmer temperatures. Yeah, no, our buildings stay quite comfortable. I mean, there are different buildings as far as for where the comfort level sits, but my actual shop down here stays pretty comfortable. And then obviously our main buildings and our dorms stay pretty comfortable, sometimes a little too warm.
Remind me again of the timetable going forward for you, how long you're down there. Do you need to go back to New Zealand for more quarantine afterwards? What's the calendar like for you?
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So right now, my redeployment date back to the real world, if you will be, is scheduled around October 2nd. Now, that's just kind of a putting a pin in it type of date. It all depends upon what aircraft are available as far as for who can leave at what times. There's also the possibility of just with the initial kind of people coming in and stuff that my deployment here may be up to November. So basically you arrive on a certain date that you're certain of when you're going to get to McMurdo. When you leave is always kind of a up in the air situation. It just depends upon the logistics and stuff like that. But yeah, usually the target date right now for a winter deployment is to leave right around October 2nd. But there's usually a give or take of about 30 to 40 days in there, just depending upon needs and stuff like that.
Can ships come and go from the place there?
Yep. So during the summer, there's actually 2 ships that come in, one for cargo and then one for fuel. So that's where, if you like seen the Polar Star, the Coast Guard's icebreaker comes down here and escorts the ships into our harbor we have down here. And then they offload and stuff. But yeah, we usually get 2 ships a year down here, one for cargo and one for fuel.
Did you by a chance see the eclipse of the moon last night?
I did. Yep. I have a whole bunch of pictures that I post up on Facebook and stuff. Kind of an ongoing adventure of what what happens down here. So I think I've probably driven my friends absolutely nuts. But yeah, no, the eclipse was pretty cool. We got I was actually up at the tower site last night when it happened. So it happened what was it? It was about 4:15 our time.
It was 11 to midnight in
4:15.
Minnesota.
Yep, so it was 4:15 p.m. our time. Yep. But yeah, it was pretty cool. It's amazing how much you can see down here without the light pollution and stuff. You can actually see like the Milky Way stripe and stuff like that.
So a day in the life for you starts at what time? You quote unquote go to your desk at such and such time, lunch, dinner, bed, etc.
What's that? I didn't hear the first part.
I was curious what times for you you do such and such things, or if you
Yeah,
have
so
light challenges when sleeping, etc.
yeah, I think so working in the broadcast industry has allowed me to acquire the ability to sleep when I have to and not sleep when I shouldn't be. So actually, broadcast engineering is a great way to pre-train you for Antarctica. So basically, trying to juggle the life schedule here plus the family at home and being able to communicate with them. Usually, I start my morning around 5:30 our time down here, which ends up being lunchtime for you guys. So right now it's 6:30 in the morning, and it's what 1:30 in the afternoon for you guys. So usually around 5:30 I wake up. We usually take lunch about 11:30, and then dinner is at 5:30. And then I usually it just depends upon the day. I've gotten kind of the ability to just be able to sleep kind of within that window from probably about 7 to 5:30 a.m. So it just kind of depends, if my if something's going on as far as for work wise or something, I kind of adjust my sleep schedule, but I try to get some sleep in there somewhere. It's usually about 3 hours, but I mean, anybody who's worked in the broadcast industry would go, that's a good night's sleep.
Are there many women there with you?
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. We've got a crew that I would say is I don't want to say it's 50-50, but there's quite a few people down here. The lady that's in charge of like our power plant and our wastewater plant, she's pretty cool. She's down here, and then we have various women in different positions around here that I mean, it's awesome to see all that. We got one that runs like the road grader and stuff like that, so it's really cool. We got a diverse crew down here. But yeah, I would say there's a good chunk. I don't know a percentile, but it's closer to 50% than it is, like 25%.
Tell us how you wound up going on this adventure. How did it start?
Yeah, so I applied for Antarctica a couple of times. Funny enough, I actually applied for the broadcast engineering side for Abfalter. Never got a response back. And then the department person for communications seen my application come through and gave me a call and asked me if I'd be interested. This was about 2 years ago. He kind of knew my background with amateur radio, knew I had quite a bit of two-way radio experience and stuff like that, HF experience, and just generally, with broadcast engineering, you have a lot of satellite knowledge and, just knowledge to bring to the table. So about 2 years ago, they started recruiting me, and at that time, it just wasn't a good time to do a deployment, but they finally convinced me to come down here this year. So that's basically the way it started.
So who pays who in this? Do you get a salary?
Yep, I do get a salary. Yep.
And who paid the transportation?
They did, like the program does.
Did you go? You must have gone down on what, a cargo plane or something?
Yep. So we actually this year we actually got a really cool experience that most people don't get. We actually got to leave the military base. What is it, McCord, in Seattle on a C-17, and we actually got to fly the whole journey down on a C-17. Typically, that's not the case. Typically, you would fly a commercial flight or a chartered flight to New Zealand, and then from New Zealand you'd fly down on a C-17. But this year, just with the circumstances and the size of our group and the fact that there was kind of cargo going to McMurdo, we all got to fly on the C-17, which is a really cool experience. I mean, the commercial jets are a little bit nicer in the sense of like, I don't want to say comfort, but they're a little bit more quieter. One of the blessings of the C-17 is I mean, it's huge. So if you want to get up and walk around, I mean, the C-17 is a big aircraft to walk around on. So it's not so much like a commercial flight where, you know, you kind of get a aisle and you really can't get up and move around. The C-17 was nice. You could get up, move around, stretch if you got tired on the flight, especially from our leg from Honolulu down to New Zealand. You could stretch out on the floor and, you know, lay down and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think the C-17 was a lot more comfortable than flying any commercial.
Did you
Plus, the
do
military was
mid-air
really cool.
refueling?
Nope, they do not allow that. That's why we had to take a break in Honolulu.
Okay. So what was the flight time?
From where to where?
Well, well, in the air, how many hours did you spend in the air?
Oh, 20 some maybe total.
Wow.
That would be the leg from Seattle to Honolulu, Honolulu to Christchurch, and then Christchurch to Phoenix Field down here at McMurdo. I'd say total time was probably 20 something.
Two questions popped into the chat. Thank you, Mr. Griffin. He, I guess, was also he also went to Antarctica in his younger days. He came up with a number of 22 plus hours in total for him.
Yeah.
Questions popped into the chat. What time zone is it there? And what do you do for site maintenance to prepare for winter?
Sure. So we actually followed New Zealand time because we've got Scott Base right down the road, and we deploy out of Christchurch, and that's kind of where the Antarctic headquarters is as far as for our deployments from, you know, mainland to Antarctica. Site prep during winter is basically, so like when we take down our repeaters and stuff, it's bringing the batteries in, flipping over solar cells, securing them, things like that, just bringing general equipment in. As for our infrastructure itself, really there's not too much winter prep because it's built from the start to be able to handle winter and things like that. Obviously, you know, the standard things that would be checked over, like we go through generators and things like that. Well, we don't, but we have facilities people that go through them, make sure everything's operational along with their monthly checklist that they do. But it's basically anything that we would do in the broadcast industry as far as for going through sites and just making sure things are ready for winter, making sure there's no obstacles for plowing, anything that needs to be tagged and marked so they don't get hit during the winter and stuff like that. So basically just kind of common sense things.
Can you be resupplied in the wintertime?
Yeah, so flights usually stop in the winter. If there is a medical reason, we will get a flight. Otherwise, resupplying in the winter doesn't really happen. We usually get our 1 yearly push on the cargo vessel. So a lot of items have to be ordered ahead of time with kind of that mindset. They can bring down some emergency parts on the aircraft. But again, if it's like, let's say UPSs or something like that, those things are usually ordered a year ahead of time. So usually when we do logistics, it's planning for a year out. So it's kind of a unique circumstance that you just can't call DigiKey and have the parts here, within a few days. Best case is during the summer, you could have the parts in a few weeks. During the winter, our next flight in will be August.
Minnesota.
So we don't have. Oh, go ahead.
Minnesota to Minnesota. What is the approximate size? Can you give a comparison of the amount of terrain either that you're responsible for or of the entire complex that you're at?
Yeah, so I don't know how to put a distance on it, but as far as for responsibility, we're responsible for the communications at McMurdo and then the adjoining facilities. So like the airports and things like that. We're responsible for the whole area. So it's quite a bit. Was that the answer you're looking for, or was there?
I was trying to compare it to like the size of a small town city, or just never having thought much about what this station is like, how large it actually is. I've seen some of the pictures you posted on Facebook, so I was trying to get a reference.
Sure. So the main city is probably I don't even know, probably about a mile by half a mile, roughly, as far as for what we'd call city coverage. And then we have like our tower site, which is on the backside of the city, but it's up on a hilltop. And then we've got further infrastructure that's further up a hill that you end up climbing or having to take a specialized track vehicle to get up there. Frankly, it's a lot easier to just climb it than it is to try to take a vehicle up there, unless you're carrying something super heavy. And then we have like various repeaters on different mountains and stuff like that. And then the Black Island facility, we have some infrastructure out there that communications takes care of, like I said, our HF receive and stuff like that. So the city area is pretty small, but the expanse of the equipment, I don't know, it's spread out about 30 miles would be a good estimate.
I'm guessing it would take, even on an emergency basis, a fair amount of time to get some kind of medevac spun up if, God forbid, something happened requiring that kind of assistance. So you must have a pretty well decked out medical station down there.
Yeah, so the medical services here are, it's better than triage, but it's basic. We have a doctor and a nurse on staff, so they can take care of quite a few emergencies and stuff like that. We don't have like surgery available, but we do have X-ray, ultrasound, things like that. During the winter, we do keep Phoenix Field, which is our large airfield. It's a snow-packed runway. They do a really good job in maintaining that and keeping that open and available. So if there was an emergency, they could spin up a flight if needed. And it just is all dependent upon weather and stuff like that. So, if everything's good, it could be quick, but if it's cold and windy, obviously weather kind of holds a play. So when we do things down here, we try to be extra safe in what we're doing, because, you kind of hear that safety is a large component in the States and stuff like that, but you also have medical facilities immediately down the road. And I say that even in the rural areas. I mean, you still have the availability to get to a medical facility. Here we do have really good team of medical people, and we're well equipped, but safety is definitely something that we have to think about when we do. I mean, even with our work that we do with, working on transmitters and items like that, I mean, it doesn't hurt to triple check what we're doing before we do something, because if something does happen, to get medevaced out of here might be a quick thing, or it may take weeks. So.
Another couple things in the chat, one from Mr. Griffin again. Track vehicles, but movements are typically kept to a minimum during winter in his experience. And one question here, what's the main mode of winter transportation to get to the repeater or tower sites?
Yep, so typically during the winter, movements are kept to a minimum. So like I'm on the search and rescue team down here, so we do a little bit more moving than most other people. But I mean, it's just kind of one of those common sense approaches. Obviously, winter brings its own unique challenges and items like that that inherently increase the risk. So, I mean, obviously, everybody is aware of that, and we try to kind of keep that into consideration with what we're doing. And then as far as getting out to the various sites, we wouldn't typically go to a site like, let's say, Black Island, or like a repeater site that would be significantly out of town, because those repeater sites, while needed during the summer, usually aren't a super necessity during the winter. As far as for what repeater sites we do have, or infrastructure we do have, those are road accessible, and they keep everything plowed, with the exception of one site just up from our tower site, and that's the one that we usually climb, or if we have to carry any heavy equipment up, we take a tracked vehicle. But in most cases, if it's just a general repair, we would just hike up it, because it's a little bit faster to do it that way.
So what's the age of the people there? Do you have old research scientists plus young people, or what do you got?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag of everybody. We've got, pretty young people here that are starting out in their careers and stuff like that. A lot of mechanics and, staff like that, all the way to, obviously well-seasoned veterans that have been here probably since the station was put in. Not really, but they've been here a very long time. So it's really a mixed bag. It's a fun community, because the age ranges are pretty much DC to daylight.
Glenn was asking again if that was Nob Hill you were referring to in your last answer.
Oh, Crater Hill is the one that I'm referring to as far as for the one that we have to climb.
So who runs the place? I mean, where we live in Minnesota, there are governments and police forces. What about where you are?
Yep. So in our area, we are pretty much under U.S. as far as for our rules and regulations on station. We have a U.S. Marshal, a special marshal, who's our station manager and stuff like that. But as far as for rules and regulations, there's policy specific to our facility as far as for like alcohol and things like that. But as far as for like a legal system and stuff like that, the rules are pretty much the same as they are in the States.
Oh, wait a minute. You mentioned alcohol. Is it prohibited?
Nope, it's not prohibited, but it's rationed.
Oh,
I mean, I don't know why anybody would want to get drunk down here, because I mean, it's it's too darn beautiful to be be not enjoying being down here. So, but yeah, it's all rationed.
okay. I can just see this as a murder novel here. It happens in the middle of the winter where you're at, and it's a whodunit. I can just imagine that because you can't come and go. Hi. So
No, it's actually a lot of fun during the winter. There's everybody's a lot more calm, because I mean, we don't have certainly the amount of people on station, and during the summer months, obviously there's a lot of hustle and bustle to try to get scientists out in the field and support those operations and stuff like that. During the winter, everybody's a lot more relaxed and stuff, as far as for the environment. So really during the winter, there's not any trouble at all, because, we're all just doing our tasking and stuff. And obviously, we're enjoying the weather and things like that. So
what about
it's a fun time.
recreation and exercise to keep your body up?
Yeah, well, just doing stuff daily is a good exercise regiment. So as far as for exercising and stuff, we'd have what you'd expect. We have weights, we have treadmills and stuff. So we have our own weight room. There's a gym called the Gerbo Gym. That's where a lot of the treadmills and stuff like that are. And then we have the big gym, which is like for playing soccer and stuff indoors and things like that. So that's for exercise if you want to be indoors. If you want to be outdoors, I mean, there's trails galore. I usually try to put on about 14 miles a day just in walking and stuff like that. Because it's too gorgeous not to. So yeah, basically during the winter, there's a lot of recreation trails available. We do some other activities, like there's a photo club on station that goes out and does like a lot of outdoor photography. Our recreation team is pretty awesome. They put on like stargazing events and stuff like that. Going to see the last sunset. They just did a overnight winter camping here, I think 2 weeks ago, which is pretty fun and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's a lot going on as far as for recreation. If you get bored, then I think you're doing something wrong.
I was about to ask if you read the novel Deception Point by Dan Brown, but then I was reminded that that book took place in the Arctic as opposed to Antarctica.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it is a lot of fun to be down here if you like the outdoors and stuff like that. And I mean, really, we have a really good crew down here, so it makes the time fly pretty quick. That's the only sad part is at some point, you're going to have to leave the continent. So, but it makes it a lot of fun being able to do the work down here and stuff when you've got a good crew of people.
Lynn's comment got me thinking about something. Under the terms of the Antarctic Treaty and under the National Science Foundation, broadly speaking, what's the goal that all this work or all of what you're doing is leading up towards? What's NSF? What's the objective, to put it in a really broad way?
Yeah, well, and I mean, obviously the statements are not, it's not speaking on behalf of NSF or anything. But as far as personally, the reason I came down here was to, support the science in a broad term. Down here, the science that's being done, environmental is kind of the hot topic. Of science, but I think it gets more light and, shadows the other science down here that's being done, biology, understanding, the actual planetary science and stuff like that. Going back in history, taking a look at the ice samples and things like that and seeing how things have changed, how things have evolved. Along with the research as far as in astronomy and stuff like that, being able to be in an area where there's not a huge amount of light pollution. You're kind of in an RF dead zone, especially down at the South Pole and stuff like that, and being able to do research on like the RF side and see what's out there. So, I mean, there's so much science down here that I think that's a principal objective is just to support all these various sciences. So it's kind of fun being part of it.
So how long is your stay going to be?
My stay ends up being 8 to 9 months.
And then you'll go back after a brief period?
Yeah, if I do decide to come back, yeah, it would be deploying back in February again.
Don't you have a wife and children at home over?
Yeah, I sure do. I have 2 daughters and, of course, a wife. Yep. But like I said, technology has kind of come to the point where, I mean, you can, it's not so primitive anymore. So you can do video chatting and stuff like that. So, I mean, while I do miss them, you still get to be a large component of the personal life. So it's not nearly as isolated as it used to be.
Any other questions? Hearing none.
What about wildlife? See any wildlife?
Yep, penguins and seals. And skuas too, the birds. So that's basically the wildlife that we get to see.
And do you see them all the time, or is that a treat?
Yeah, so during the winter, they start following like the ice pack out. So during the winter, we don't see them as much. I mean, there's some seals that still kind of hang around here and there. But yeah, during the winter, they usually push out and obviously follow the ice out and stuff like that. When I did arrive here, we did get to see quite a few penguins and stuff just around. But that was because the sea wasn't freezing over yet.
Well, thank you, sir. This has been a lot of fun. Make sure to keep us posted.
All right. I appreciate it.
Check in with us when you get back to the States, all right?
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you for spending time with us.
Yeah, no problem. Glad I could do it.
Your day is just getting started, I suppose.
Yep, we're getting ramped up. So yeah, day's just getting started.
All right. We'll let you get to it. Thank you very much. Stay safe.
All right. Take care, guys. Yep. Bye.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining on.
Thank you, Taylor, for setting this up.